Well, that will go down as one of the greatest World Series games, but I dare say, even if it wasn't a fun game to watch, if the
Right.
Astros had come out there and eclipsed the Dodgers 11-0, still the people of Houston would be gratified by that kind of win. It's something kind of a collective state of mind that takes over. Can you shed some light on it? Name what's going
Okay.
on? It's
It
not
has,
unique to Houston, but Houston's in the spotlight now. Yeah.
we are, and we're all feeling pretty good, even if we're not playing, because we relate to them as a group. We identify, and it's called the social identity theory. And what they call it, particularly with the game, is verging, and it's basking in reflective glory. So we are getting reflective glory from what's happening with the Astros. And I say we, which is really interesting because that means it's me. I'm relating with the Astros. I'm playing myself. That's how powerful this is. So far so good.
Well,
now,
I was just kind of curious, Jill. Does it differ? I was just curious about, when we go to watch a movie or a stage
Right.
play, they talk about catharsis, where we get wrapped up and we learn something, or the event touches us emotionally and arguably psychologically. Is this a cousin to the notion of catharsis, that emotional release?
Well, yes and no. This is more,
Okay.
it's a group thing. So if we're doing that relating to the movie, it's more we're empathizing. We can maybe see ourselves in there. We pick out a character in the movie, whereas this is, we are identifying with the whole team, not just one person, the whole team. And so what happens is, if they lose, our team loses, we have what is called, we become a coffer, or cut off reflective failure. So basically what we do is it turns into not a we anymore, it's a they. They lost the game. Not all of us do that, but quite a few. And it takes the burden off of us. So what we do is we identify, usually either when they're doing well or not doing well. But if they're not doing well, we tend to push it away and call them a they.
As you mentioned that, I think about the play-by-play technique of
Yes.
the gentleman who calls the radio games for the San Diego Padres. And when San Diego is winning, he calls them my Padres. And when things
Right.
are not going so well, he calls them your Padres, which
Right.
is a point you're basically making. But there's something else going on this year in terms
Yes.
of the fact that Harvey visited such destruction on Houston. And if you
Right.
look at every Astro, there is the patch on their uniform, Houston
Yes.
strong. So what
Right.
does that mean to the whole relationship? Isn't this something a little deeper based on the trauma of what went on during Hurricane Harvey and what
Well,
is still going on, I guess?
Right. It gets us to focus on a superordinate goal. And so therefore we stick together, and it gets us to focus away from the tragedy that happened. And so we're feeling better, victorious, because we're winning. And so it gives us self-esteem. It's building our self-esteem. When we had this devastation, our self-esteem plummeted. So this is lifting our self-esteem, and everybody is getting even doubly into it because of what happened. And then there's something called, if you're an in-group or you're an out-group bias. And so when being an Astros fan, I'm in the in-group. So I'm going to ask you, are you in the in-group or the out-group, JD?
I would love to see the Astros do well. My granddad played for a time for the Dodgers, but I'm like Switzerland in this one. I'm kind of neutral. I like both teams. I want to see a good series, but I can understand, especially for Houston, only one other World Series appearance as the National League champions. I believe in 2000, was it 2005, 2000? Yeah, 2005. And then poor Houston plummeting to the depths of baseball, switching leagues, but now rising, I hate to use the term Phoenix-like since I'm out here in Arizona close by Phoenix, but there is much to be admired with this team. And I think you make the point. The other point I wanted to make, Jill, is that so often when we think about relationships, when people hear you're a relationships expert, they think about one-on-one romantic relationships, but there are a lot of other relationships. The team dynamic, where a manager like AJ Finch, the manager you guys have there, will use different strategies with different players. Ditto for Dave Roberts and the Dodgers. Sometimes knowing the play, they'll chew a guy out or they'll treat him with kid gloves. And I'm wondering if we can draw an analogy, albeit imperfect, to the way President Trump takes to task some Republican members of the Senate. For example, I just want you to listen. We'll only have about a minute left coming out of this. But here is President Trump about my old Arizona colleague, Jeff Flake. And I just kind of want to get your reaction to this. We'll listen to him and then come back. Here is the president yesterday en route to Texas.
He was against me from before he ever knew me. He wrote a book about me before I ever met him, before I ever heard his name. His poll numbers in Arizona are so low that he couldn't win. And I don't blame him for leaving. I think he did the right thing for himself. But if you know, long before he ever knew me, during the campaign, even before the campaign, he came out with his horrible book. And I said, who is this guy? In fact, I remembered the first time I saw him on television, I had not really been, nobody knew me in terms of politics. But the first time I saw him on television, I said, I assume he's a Democrat. Is he a Democrat? They said, he's a Republican. I said, that's impossible. So look, his poll numbers are terrible. He's done terribly for the great people of Arizona, a state that likes Donald Trump very much, as even you will admit. And he would have never won. In fact, even in the primary, he's way down in the primary. So he did the smart thing for himself.
So I need a minute diagnosis, maybe 45 seconds.
Okay,
your take on what the
quick.
president had to say about Senator Flake. Okay.
Okay. Well, let's just go with this. For Jeff Flake, he is using leadership attribution bias. And what happens with this, it happens all the time. CEOs get fired because of the airbags. And so what people do is they attribute negative or positive outcomes because of the leader, even if the leader has no control over what's going on. And this causes victim mentality. It causes blaming. It causes a lot of anger. And so that's what's happening with Jeff Flake. So I know Trump has a lot of power. But
I appreciate that, Jill. And of course, you throw in the toxic narcissism of Flake, and that's a problem too. Jill Payne, thanks so much. Coming back with your calls and a lot more, so stay with us.